Most of us have learned what we know about the American Indian from Western movies that were made in Hollywood, so it's easy to understand why there are many misconceptions about Indian culture. Now, the other reason for this is the fact that the Indians for generations have kept secret their ceremonies and their traditions because of fear of ridicule for their lifestyle. But tonight we're going to meet a shaman chief who is determined to change that. He has dedicated his life to the preservation and explanation of Indian culture and traditions of the Indian nation.
You see, the Indians will not tell the white movie maker about his Indian secret ceremonies because they always had a habit of making a show out of it rather than the sincere development of an individual. Therefore, they had no resource but to go to places like Africa, who had assimilation to our way of life. In their culture, in their beadwork, a lot of it's the same, but native people build a structure in a joint fashion with never seeing each other. So what they did is they utilized African techniques of ceremonies, African techniques of dancing, etc., put them in Indian costumes, and put them on the screen. And suddenly Indians says, oh, God, is that me? No way. But what happened in 4 generations, the young began to believe it.
Educated at Oxford University in England, 70-year-old Algonquin shaman chief Kitpou has dedicated his life to correcting the misconceptions about his people. After 40 years of research with nearly every tribe in North America, he has joined with Western artist Chester Fields to produce a series of paintings that will describe in detail the secret ceremonies of the Indian nation. This project is intended to clarify for all people the traditions and culture of the American Indian. And one major misconception has to do with Indian religion.
Now, when the white man came, he said, yes, bury all your beliefs, burn all your artifacts, destroy everything, and begin again, and I will give you a great message. Did you know that there is one God? And he good Lord, I believed in one God in the beginning. But on top of that, he said, now, that God had a son. Why did he not say, your God had a son? If he had done this, Christianity would have been solid across this continent with no problems whatsoever. Because the Indians have legends among them that the visitation of a man wearing a white cloud, he had no description of cloud. So he said, the man that wore a white cloud floated among us and made peace among the tribes, saying, love your brother.
In many ways, the Indian beliefs parallel those of other races. In fact, their battle against prejudice goes back to the early foundations of Indian culture.
And the shaman clan's basic feeling to this day is to teach mankind to love each other. For in the tribal law is written, condemn not a man by the lilt of his voice, his language, the hue of his flesh, the color, or the curvature of his face, Chinese, Japanese, German, French, English. For it is within him and unseen that which can love you. And there is the man that you can find as a brother.
And their feelings of brotherhood encompass almost every aspect of Indian life.
And the Great Spirit said to my children, when you are blind and you cannot see, when you are deaf and you cannot hear, when you cannot speak or you cannot walk, search for the beautiful thing I have hidden within you. For every creature has its place, for I have put him there for a reason. So condemn not the handicapped. He is yet your brother, and he may have a gift greater than yours.
The misconceptions about Indian life abound, but many of the Indian ways can be better understood when one realizes how important they were for survival. One of the most criticized aspects of Indian life has been the seemingly odd rituals of the shaman or medicine man. But those rituals could save a person's life.
What happens is this fellow has a devilish fever. He's hot under the arms and hot on the head. Now, fever can kill you if you go to sleep. So the medicine man comes over and he's looking for a power to save that man's life. And he takes a knife, like this, and he comes right down over the knife, right over his neck and stops right there. That scares you, believe me. You think he's going to kill you because he's not going to wait for you to die. You're frightened. What happens? The adrenaline fills the system with power. And you have a fighting force you did not have before.
Perhaps the most dramatic ceremony of the Indian nation is that of Sundance. It's a ritual that requires the participants to endure incredible pain and torture. But the very survival of the Indian nation was tied closely to the endurance of the Sundance warrior.
In the old days, he became a wise man who protected children, for his pain was so great that it was greater than the wound of an arrow or the shot of a gun in the present day. And he could remain silent over these terrible pain. And if he could do this thing, then he could protect the greatest possession of the tribe, their children, in a hiding place. And if he were shot, he would not cry out and give that hiding place away. Therefore, his duty in life, beyond the Sundance, was to be wise and protect the children. And that was all.
Indian culture is filled with stories that reflect the basic beliefs of its people, and Chief Kitpou loves to tell the story of a meeting between the tribal chiefs of Canada and Governor-General Lord Bessborough of the United Kingdom.
At the very end of the meal, they brought in the little bowls of water with lemon juice in it to the finger bowl to wash your fingers. And the old chief, one of them, drank his finger bowl, and the Governor-General drank his immediately. And this was one of the finest diplomatic moves a man could make. And they respected him because they eventually found out what they had done. And they thought that man was a saint among them. And these are the keys to the brotherhood of man. Never let a man be hurt, even if he must do something ridiculous. Do it for his sake and save his pride. And you will be loved for it, and the world will follow you in your fashion.
Chief Kitpou's driving motivation is to preserve the truth about the ways of his people, but even he realizes how impossible it would be to return to the life of his forefathers.
He would love to go back to it, but the world is changing. We have to change with it. But do not be ashamed of what you once were, and bring that quality forward into the people of today, and the Indian shall stand proud, and he will have a reason for it.
The project that Chief Kitpou and Chester Fields are working on will take about 2 years to complete and will result not only in some magnificent artwork, but also in a book that will explain the meaning and interpretation of each of the paintings in the collection.